West of What is a round-table conversation inspired by Mother Earth's call for more landwork ceremonies to happen. This is a podcast where spirituality lands into politics, history, culture, and more, because land is where we all meet. We want to know how we can come into greater connection with the land and each other, and how we can all move forward with integrity. We believe the answers and solutions will come from many voices, from the truths that happen inside of our togetherness.
Today's intention is love and gratitude for all the beautiful and wonderful things we have in this world.
That's a beautiful intention and a very cool and aligned intention for our not one but two amazing guests on the show today. I am so excited to say that we have the amazing Gratia Churchill, who is just the most amazing human being, yoga teacher and runner of Brighton Kirtan and Kirtan singer. She is opening hearts and changing lives every week of her life. And then we have the beautiful Pam Dalton, who is the co-owner of the amazing Mill Space Retreat Centre with her partner Rob, a trained yoga teacher. She trained about 10 years ago and has been practicing yoga and kirtan forever. And these two women have done more for my heart than they will ever know. And they share my absolute love and reverence for kirtan. And when me and Gratia were running our retreat at the Mill Space, a conversation began in the kitchen whilst medicine was being made that felt very important, that it needed to come on to this show, because kirtan obviously has its roots in India. And we were talking all about how we take these amazing gifts of other lands and culturally celebrate as we share them. And so I'm really, really excited for this conversation to come onto West of What. How are you both?
I'm really good. Thank you, Kahreela. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Much appreciated.
I'm good, thank you. Just getting ready for our next retreat after your lovely retreat. That was such a lovely opening of my season here. So I'm always excited when you two turn up for the retreat. It's just always amazing. So we're getting ready for the next one. But thank you for inviting me to the chat, because yes, it began in the kitchen, the little chat that we had. So we can continue.
And Ekbalu, how are you?
Good. Very good, thank you. It's been a bit turbulent the last few days, but right now it's good to be here and present.
And so I'd like to ask, for people that don't know what kirtan... Firstly, Ekbalu, have you ever done kirtan?
I haven't, but I'm a huge advocate for sound healing, and I've done some of that myself, so I'm very, very interested to hear much more about it.
Oh my God, we have a kirtan virgin. I'm so excited for you. So for somebody that hasn't done kirtan like Ekbalu, how do you describe it?
Well, I would say that kirtan is in the realm of the yoga of sound. I'd say it's a meditation with sound, but it's quite different from how we might experience, obviously, a silent meditation. And it really welcomes and kind of invites a journey. We often go on a journey. It's a practice of purification. So as we chant, we might feel emotional, we might feel joyful, we might feel calm. There's many things we might experience, but to me it always feels like a bit of a journey, and that whenever I start and then when I finish, I'm always in a completely different space. It's the chanting of ancient mantras. So these mantras, which comes from the Sanskrit manas and travas, mind freedom. So we get the mind freedom because we are fully absorbing ourselves in the mantra, as opposed to what so-and-so said earlier, or that bit of road rage on the way to the kirtan. We absorb ourselves in the mantra, and the mind can then be free from the mind chatter. It's the repeating of mantras with a simple melody so that everyone can join in together and feel that medicine of the heart. The Bhakti Yoga tradition is the yoga of the heart. So whereas with other forms of yoga, like the posture-based yoga that most people know, you'll do the movements and you clear your energy body through the movements, you focus on your breath, and then that brings you into a place of oneness, of connection with yourself and with everything. And with kirtan, you're doing that with sound. You're chanting, and that brings you into your heart and into that space of connection with those people around you and the all that is.
So when you're chanting, is this something like, when it comes to the melodies and the words that are coming out of your mouth, is that all channeled, or is it something that you learn and there's a rhythm that you sort of meditate?
Well, the mantras are they're like ancient mantras generally. So Om Namah Shivaya, we can have that example. So that would be a mantra that's been chanted for thousands of years and has that energy within it. And then the melody would be what the kirtan leader kind of brings to the mantra. So there will be some traditional melodies, like ones that if you go to some ashrams in India, you'll hear some particular melodies. And then there are the melodies. So I play some chants, that some traditional Indian ones. There are some that have kind of come through me because I don't have a musical background, so it's taken me a while to have that experience. So there's quite a lot of mantras that have kind of come through me in terms of their melody, but also probably influenced by all the others I've heard. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, very interesting. And is there any instruments or soundscapes involved in the background, or is it purely voice?
Really good question. Yes, I didn't add that in. So there's harmonium.
Not always.
That's true. Not always.
Some people do it with a guitar.
That's true. That's more. Yeah, I think in India you'll find the harmonium is used.
Is the harmonium always used in India? Like, is it traditionally it's always the harmonium?
I believe so, that there'll be lots of other instruments. They'll have the tabla, they'll have a harmonium, there might be a sitar. So, but however, the harmonium is, and I forget my numbers in perimenopause, it's more of a newer instrument. So obviously when people were chanting together in the music, in the marketplace, in 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th century, I don't know what instruments were there then, or if it was simply sung and maybe with clapping and the melody was given through the voice. That's a really good question, because certainly the instruments like the harmonium came later.
Yeah, I think you taught me about the instrument coming over. Wasn't it originally like organ that had been brought over by the Christians? I think they were sort of doing their missionary work. It's something to do with that, or European anyway. And because they all sit on the floor in India, I think they sort of chopped the legs off. This is the story I got of how the harmonium came to India. So I think it's filtered through from Europe. Is that right, Grazia? Because I think that's sort of something that I learned from you, maybe. I don't know.
And then I forgot. That is correct. However, I think that would probably be more like 17th, 18th century. And obviously there's been Kirtan, as a practice, as a devotional practice, growing from southern India in maybe 6th, 7th century all the way through to northern India by the 13th century. So what they were actually using in those early experiences of people gathering, I don't know.
I don't know. No.
What are the roots of Kirtan? Where does it? How did it begin?
So my understanding of the roots of Kirtan is it developed as part of a part of a tradition, this bhakti tradition that started in southern India, as I just mentioned, and then kind of spread all the way through India. And how it came about was, at that time in India, there was a real kind of like a control around who was in the temple, who the teachings were passed down to. Everything was oral. So that was father to son in the Brahmin caste. So it was very exclusive as opposed to inclusive. And therefore, lots of people weren't even allowed in the temple. And this kind of bhakti movement grew from a place of people taking into their own hands that experience of expressing oneness, expressing the divine that flows through all of us. So it kind of grew that there were individuals that were then named the poet saints, who would, from their place of meditation, write poetry, express emotions, express their connection to the divine. And so we had these individuals, the poet saints. There was this idea of people then gathering in the marketplace to share poetry, to share songs. So in a way, it was quite revolutionary as a practice.
Yeah, like rebel. It's like rebel divinity.
Yeah, it's like we this is our temple. Our body is our temple. We don't need to go somewhere and be, a certain gender and in a certain caste to be able to experience connection to the divine and oneness. No, we can gather together and we can feed each other with our connection through stories and song and and that grew as a movement. So that grew all the way through India.
Yeah, I think I really liked that when I found that out on your course, because I did your training, your Learn to Lead training. And I remember when you talked about that, it felt like, yay, that's why I was attracted to it. It's that rebellion thing of just breaking free, and that whole movement really kind of made it really sort of like, I get it, I understand it. And it's like, it's a great story about how it came about. Oh, sorry.
And it belongs to the people, which, so, because Kirtan now is kind of doing the same thing in a different way. Like, it's spreading through the West. I mean, like, in terms of like modern day awake music, you hear on Namah Shivaya and, like in the awakened unity, like, it's like Kirtan's like finding its way into the modern day markets and the modern day, I don't know, it's kind of doing what it did all of those years ago in a different way now. And so there's something, it feels like it really belongs to the people, hey?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that brings us to sort of that thing about, what we were talking about in the kitchen about cultural appropriation, and why it's not, it's for everyone. This is for everyone. It's like connecting with the divine or opening your heart and doing purifying practices. It's not put in a box, is it? It's like, it's for everyone.
And I totally agree. It's interesting because there's a lot about a cultural appropriation in the New Age spirituality, which is a really good thing. It's a really good thing that like we're talking about this and asking about this. But it's interesting to me because it feels like a lot of that stuff focuses on shamanic and indigenous culture, and yet yoga is totally accepted that it's for everyone. And even though it comes, in a way, you could say that yoga is also culturally appropriating. And it feels like there's a generosity in the energy of the stuff that comes out of India. Not saying the other stuff isn't generous, but it feels like for some reason our collective consciousness just understands that a lot of these things are for everyone. And I want to ask, is because a lot of the mantras are Hindu though, aren't they? Or at least they're stories of Hindu deity.
Yeah, so a lot of sometimes the mantras are usually from Sanskrit, and then that has its root. The Hinduism as a language has its roots in Sanskrit. So sometimes the pronunciation might be a bit different between the Sanskrit and then kind of modern Indian, but it's sometimes just a little bit in the pronunciation.
And how do you think the Hindus feel about Kirtan going more mainstream?
Oh, yeah. I'm not sure. I hope to feel that it feels good for them. I think part of the reason that I really love the stories that I'll often share with the mantras is because it really celebrates the roots. I try and get my pronunciation right. It sometimes changes because with the melody, sometimes if we're extending a letter, sometimes that sound is actually a shorter sound in actual Sanskrit. So it feels like there's a bit of creative license there. However, I believe I also hear that same creative license when I'm listening to some Indian Kirtan. So there's a difference between the kind of the Vedic, the ancient, the type of chanting that has a particular sort of meter to it and is done in a particular way, and that would always be done in a particular way, to then Kirtan, which is to music, and it feels like there's more room and space for creativity.
And can you describe the difference between, like energetically and emotionally, is there a difference between Indian Kirtan and Western Kirtan?
Oh, what do you think, Pam?
I think there is a difference, because I think we've sort of veered, not doing traditional mantras. We do still use the same mantras, but we've kind of created this sort of different melodies. So it's probably simpler for us, I think. Not to say there's not any power still in the chanting. I think it's the same, but I think we've kind of changed it slightly. Like the different sanghas will have their different melodies, and as you know, Gratia, we'll pass them on. We'll might hear one that's come from another sangha, and we'll pass them on to each other. So it's like a whole thing that goes on with the different chanting, but it's the same. They're the same chants, but just different melodies and what people have. So yeah, I would say it's different. It's not. I wouldn't say it's classical traditional. Would you? I don't know, but some of them are. Some of them still are. But even in India, I think they're all different. Like if you go to a traditional sort of lineage of, say, Shivananda, it's completely different to, say, another school of yoga, how they'd be chanting. So I think we're allowed.
Yeah, sorry, just
no, go.
Have you finished?
No, go.
I haven't been back to India for 24 years, so but I listen to things online. There's definitely a different sound depending on what instruments are used. But you can also find that sound in England. So, for example, there are the little bells. I think they're called kartals, and at my kirtans, I have a drummer and occasionally a guitarist, and there's me on the harmonium, and people have like shaky eggs or bells. But we don't have these. But these little kartal bells that. Are played quite fast, so that gives a particular sound. However, that you probably hear in India. However, you'd also hear that here, because if in the group of people who are playing, there's someone who plays these bells really well, there'll be someone playing the bells as well. I think the way the harmonium is played often sounds different. In Western Kirtan, we often play more chords, and in India, there's often more notes played following the rags. So there is a bit of a different feel, but the energy that's coming through is same beautiful energy.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah. And do you think that when you hear like the Hare Krishna's chanting, there seems more like the traditional chanting, right? But it's quite ecstatic. It's quite sort of, so in that sense, it's never, some kirtans can be quite calming and then build up. I find their kirtan is very different. It's always very ecstatic and energy lifting. So I think they differ. But like you said, it depends on what instruments are there. Obviously we'd all like to have all the instruments that we could have, but it's, I think we chant with what we have. Well, I do anyway, with what's going on around us. And I think, like you said, the energy is the same. When you guys were here and we were just sitting around the table and it was raining and you were playing just on your own with nothing else, it was like, there's nothing more that you need than that. So, in my opinion,
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And in a way, the main instrument is the voice of the people that are there, right? So
exactly.
The main instrument is the human voice in Kirtan. And so it feels like, depending on whose human voices show up, I mean, like, even though you do a chant loads, it's different every time you do it, because there's a different collection of voices in a different place from when they last sung together. And so there's always it's like you never get bored of the chants because they always change.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And I think also, yeah, like you said, it's never the same, is it? Because also energetically, I feel sometimes, I've said it to Gratia recently, sometimes if I've got a lot going on or whatever, I feel like I need to really be chanting slow and steady. And then so it always, like you said, it depends on what's going on with the people, the person who's maybe leading it and the people that are there. It does never feel the same. You're right. I've never really thought about that. But it's always different. And we never get bored of the repetition and the power of the mantras. We just never get bored of it. It's so powerful that it's, I think that's why people I know get a little bit drawn to it, because I speak so highly of it. And I say, you should come and join and sit. And then it opens up something for people sometimes that come on this retreat that have never gone to a kirtan or anything like that. And, I kind of explain it, how it makes you feel and what it does. And it's really nice to offer that to people that never tried it and see their faces when they leave. It's like, yeah, that's how instant it is. So yeah,
it's one of the quickest ways into the heart, they say, in terms of practices.
Yeah, I agree.
The West desperately needs fast track into the heart. Any medicine from any land that can help the very, very heady culture that we are living in and under. into the heart is a good thing, I believe. But I'd quite like to ask, because obviously this show is all about like how, as the West that is so in need of these medicines and these traditions, like how can we do it well? You know, how can we do it in a way that is celebratory and respectful? And I'd just like to ask, like, how's your journey with that been, like taking this thing that is very much an Indian tradition and bringing it to the West? Like, has it been an easy journey? Has it been a hard journey? Obviously, I understand that for both of you, it's been a heart calling, and you've been following the call of Kirtan. But I just wondered what's that been like.
I think, for me, it's been amazing because I've found this practice that brings me so much joy and is such a powerful and quick way to my heart. And I've seen how much it's helped other people. And for me, there has also been this kind of question mark of like, here's me, little old Grats in England, sharing these Indian mantras, and wanting to, honour the roots. So there's definitely, and often I'll have a feeling sometimes if there's someone from Indian origin, in the Sangam, it used to like bring all that up in the moment as well. Like, oh, am I doing it right? Am I doing justice to their tradition? And something interesting that I found was that actually times that I've had feedback from those people, they were really grateful to have things like broken down, the qualities of the goddesses really explained, some of the deeper meanings of the mantras gone into, because it was something that that these few people I can think of had said, oh yeah, I didn't really, I would go to the temple and I'd get my cheek pinched by the aunties, and there'd be this music, but I didn't really, and there was this high energy, but I didn't really know what we were chanting about. I kind of knew the names and knew sort of some of the stories, but in terms of this idea that the names and the deities are kind of archetypes, energies, patterns of consciousness that are within us, as opposed to and the deities are a kind of a form given to that, so it's quite a different energy to be just to be chanting to this revered power outside of oneself, to then have that sense of, oh wow, it's my true self. So say with Om Namah Shivaya, I merge with my true self can be one of the translations, or connecting in with consciousness, spaciousness. So to then have that experience of I'm merging, as I chant, I'm merging with my true self, and I'm honouring the spaciousness and oneness of everything, is a different. It's quite a different energy.
Mm.
That it's not just something outside of ourselves. There is the deity, and there are those qualities within us that we're reminding ourselves of, and we're almost chanting into aliveness. Can't quite remember where we started, but that's where I've just ended up in response to that question. Oh yeah, it was about the journey. So I think as I over the years where I've had these feedbacks, I've realised that I am embodying the practice, and I love to read the stories and have a sense of the qualities and energies of the deities that are within me and within all of us. And for me, that's been important to, there's so much more. There's always so much more to learn, I feel. And yeah, so for me, it's been this journey of wanting to understand more, so I am able to properly celebrate the roots and celebrate the practice, as opposed to just kind of take a mantra, take an instrument, and let people join in and sing, which of course, has benefits and feels really good. But for me, when I went and I've done trainings with different people and read different books, so that much as I still feel there's so much to learn, I am honouring the roots.
I love that you honour the roots. I go to lots of Kirtan, and one of the things that I really appreciate about Brighton Kirtan is hearing the stories, so that because Kirtan does mean like singing the name of, and if you don't know what the name means, I think you can have an energetic experience for sure. But I feel like that energetic experience is so enriched when you understand the archetype, and like if you understand what Ganesh does. And I remember the first story I ever heard about Ganesh really unlocked Ganesh for me. It really made me understand the personality behind the word Ganesh. And it actually made me fall in love with him. Like, it made me really enjoy who he is. And then my relationship with him was so much more intimate when I was singing to Ganesh, and I love that. I feel like, yes, it's important to honor the roots in terms of celebrating India and where this amazing medicine has come from, but it's also so important to honor the roots for you, like in terms of your ability to receive the kirtan. I always feel like when I understand more about what we're singing, I can go deeper with it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, Gratia, your storytelling around the deities is so good. And I think that was when I did the course with you, I just thought, that's what I wanted to know. I've been chanting for years and I know there's this deep connection, but no one really explained to me why I had this feeling and this, what it was. And then Gratia popped up and then started talking about it. And I was thinking, this is what I need to understand it. Because I think it was Krishna Das that says, you don't have to understand it to be in it. It's just, you feel it. But I do need to understand it, because for me, when I started to get a harmonium and chant to myself, I wanted to know the deeper meaning. So that's what Gratia brought to me, actually. And it is important because, like you said, it becomes deeper, the practice. So yeah, I agree. That's definitely makes it much more full for me as well, knowing more about it. And now I want to know more and more. So the knowledge is like, and I think what we were talking about, cultural appreciation, is when we're in it and we're enjoying it and we want to know more of the knowledge. I think that's what we're doing. We're appreciating it, and, not just, like Gratia said, just sitting there, just chanting and not really knowing what you're chanting. It's like, I think it is important to have the knowledge around these practices if we're going to do them, so.
Yeah, interesting. And do you guys have a background in music, or is this something that this was like your first foray into it? Have you had experience with Icaros or anything like that, light language, or is this just you just saw this and you fell in love and this has been the only way for you guys?
Well, I can't speak for Gratia, but I'll just say my little bit. I was not a musician, no, and I'm only I don't hold kirtans like Gratia does. It's mainly just a few people that come here. I chant a little bit and to myself, but my background has always been musical, as in I was a DJ, all of that sort of connection. I was a DJ, yeah. And then all of that sort of connection with that rhythm and music, but never a musical person, never played an instrument ever. It was Gratia who actually said, you can do this, look, I'll show you. And so thankfully, that's what happened. But I don't know, I can't remember about Gratia's background. I'm sure it's more musical than mine.
No, it's not, Pam. And you do lead Kirtans. I don't have a musical background at all. So for me, it was the practice that just called me. It called me when I was in India, when I was 24, and then the practice fell away for a bit. And then it was when I went back to a kirtan about 12 years ago, and I just had such a powerful experience of just, release and sobbing and then joy. And after that kirtan, there was no doubt in my mind that was what I wanted to do. And within 2 weeks, I bought a harmonium. And when I went to try the harmoniums, I couldn't even make I didn't know what the patterns of chords were. So occasionally I might make a sound that sounded like pleasant, but it wasn't beautiful. It was more, I was just trying to find the feel of the harmonium, because they often feel a bit different depending on the bellows strength and how the keys feel. So yeah, for me, it was really, much as I've been into music and dancing and appreciated music, I was coming in from the love, the heart, the bhakti element, and then I've had to find my way with the music part.
I think that's what's so beautiful about Kirtan, though, because if you are not very musical, quite often you feel quite excluded from music circles. It's like you don't feel you can go and join a choir, say, because you don't feel like you're good enough at singing, or you don't, if you're not, like, I am very unmusical, so I would never feel like I could join a choir. I don't even feel like I could join a jam session. So I'm probably not good enough at leading rhythm, because I'm a bit dyslexic when it comes to music. And I feel like one of the things that's so precious about Kirtan is that you're really allowed just to bring your voice and your level of musicianship as it is, because this is about you opening your heart. And very often, and actually Kirtan has made me more musical. Like, I know that I have got better at rhythm and pitch because of having that really safe space in which just to explore and play. And actually, music is such a birthright for humanity, is such important medicine for humanity. And because we don't sit round fires and sing and come together to sing and exercise our human instrument, if you're not natural at it, you kind of shut down to it, and you kind of think, oh, I can't be part of the music that's happening in conventional ways. And I think for the people that aren't musical, Kirtan is just, it's so important because it's a place that you can sing.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that there's a part of us, I think quite often I'll find people come, maybe for the first time, and they'll be surprised at the emotion that they'll experience, whether it's actual tears or just a deep sense of emotion. And I think, there's kind of multi-layered reasons, but I really feel part of it is also because, within our DNA, we would have sat round fires and sounded and sung and it's so healing and connecting, the power of the voice and the power of the voice coming together as a group. And as you said, Kahreela, that's been lost quite a bit. So I think sometimes part of the emotion is the remembering for people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what you were saying about that, you know, people feeling, oh, I can't sing, or my thing was I could never sit on a harmonium and play a harmonium. It's surprising what it brings up, and how you, when you're chanting, you actually don't feel like it's you anyway. We've talked about it, I think, in the past, that it's like something's channeling through you. So then that sense of it's not me, Pam, chanting, makes it so much easier. It's like a flow that's coming from, you know, above, and it's channeling to me. It feels like channeling. But I do think it's really important when you do say that to people, like, you don't have to be able to sing, you don't have to be musical or have any rhythm, you just be here. And I think, like you said, it brings up a lot of emotion, and then remembering, as you said, Gratia, because, you know, people can relax then, and they don't have to feel like their voice isn't a certain way or whatever. And it makes people suddenly just soften, and, you know, into the atmosphere of what energetically what it does to you. So, and I think you gave me that confidence, actually, because when I said I can't sing, blah, 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 and then I just thought, you just have to sort of, it's like unlocking something that I was sort of it was locked in my throat. And it was really interesting the way I sort of worked through it, you know. So it was really powerful practice when I was learning on my own to you know, learn to sing, basically, learn to use my voice without holding back, you know, being nervous or whatever. So yeah, I think, yeah, it's really is completely like anyone can be there, not be musical. I think that's what's so great about it.
And do you feel like you're channeling the deities?
Yeah, that I definitely feel like I'm opening up to become a channel for the divine to flow through. Yeah, that's.
But when you say divine,
yeah,
is that the divinity of the deity or just God? Like, what is it? I understand that this is just for you, but I'm curious.
Yeah, it's hard to put into words. I suppose, and it changes. I'll feel connected with the energy. It's like sometimes it's almost not as specific as it's not like I'll be feeling a very different quality. That's what I'm trying to get to. It's not that I'll be feeling a very different quality if I'm, you know, even though there are different qualities with Saraswati, say, goddess of wisdom, music, speech, sound, and then say with Shiva, with the Om Namah Shivaya mantra. So every time's different, and I'm really not making myself clear. I apologise. Let me try and get a bit clearer. Yeah, I don't. It's like I kind of set things up first with discussing the energy of the deity, and then I open myself up and allow the energy of the mantra to flow through.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think everyone naturally doubts their ability to use their voice, and it is a very powerful tool that we all have. And myself, I've come from, you know, an electronic music background, DJing, and then slowly moving to instruments and then toning. And then I started doing some channeling and echoes and stuff myself. And you've always got a bit of that imposter syndrome thinking, oh, I'm not trained in singing, my voice is horrible. But when you do relax and let go and you're in the zone, things do flow. And your voice box is a muscle. So you can train that muscle. And when you relax that muscle and just allow everything to flow through and you have a high intention, then you reach tones that you didn't think you possibly could. And there's times with me, I'm listening to my voice like, wow, that I did not know I could do that, you know, because I'm just really in the zone. And then there's other times where I'm not quite in the zone. I've sort of rushed into it. I haven't really, set the right intention. I haven't really got into the right zone, and I'm overthinking it, and I can't quite get the frequency right, and I'm not matching the tones correctly. I'm too in my head. But when you just channel and you let go, and you're almost having an out of body experience where it's happening, and you're trying not to focus on it, but you're kind of hearing it, and you're in this weird Zen state. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It is.
I love that you brought that up, Ekbalu, because definitely there is a zone in Kirtan. Like, definitely I feel like everybody drops into a pod state. Like, I feel like there's a zone that comes in, and you end up in and people end up harmonizing and like really creating this musical soundscape because they're so in the zone. And I want to I love that you brought that up, Ekbalu, because I feel like what's amazing is there's something about Kirtan that means you always go into the zone. Like what you were just saying, Ekbalu, about like sometimes you're not in the zone and then sometimes I want to know why you two think it is that with Kirtan you always go into the zone.
Well, I mean, just before I get into potentially why, I just want to say one other thing as well. I've noticed a universal Om is probably the most common thing where everyone as a collective, if they've never sung, they've never chanted before, when everyone does an Om, there's a point in that exaggerated Om where everyone is synced and you can feel it. It's unbelievable. And there's just this bit where everyone clicks and is on that same frequency. And there's no other mantra or singing or anything I've ever heard where universally people can just drop into that. And it might take 3 Oms for them to sort of get the confidence to start raising their voice. And when I was running my music events, we'd always start doing an Om, and we'd always put the new people in the middle of the circle and everyone would do an Om. And there was just always a point, no matter how trained everyone was, where everyone just got involved and you could feel it. Like you could tell that this was resonating to the universe. And why that is, who knows? Probably just because it's a powerful energy.
Do you know what Om means in Kirtan? Because Gratia starts her Kirtan with Om.
Yeah, well, one of the translations is the divine yes. It means yes, as well as said to have been the kind of first sound from which all other sounds come. But yeah, it's yes.
Wow. And do you think saying yes allows the zone to begin? Is that why you start your Kirtan with Om? And Ekbalu started his music intuitively with Om. Do we think that Om, is it like setting the original note?
Yeah.
Zone?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And why do you guys think, why do you think it is easier to be in the zone in Kirtan?
I think it's I think like Rex was saying, you open yourself up and you connect with the divine, or sometimes it's the goddess or God energy. But I think when you're in a collective group, it spreads out and everyone sort of just is vibrating in the same energy field. That's how it feels to me anyway. I don't know. And then but the problem I have is when I get into that state, that zone that you're talking about, is sometimes I lose what I'm supposed to be doing on the harmonium, because I become so high with this energy that I go and lose my thread almost, because it's just so strong and powerful. But that's what I feel like. You're drawing on the energy, and then it's spreading out as we're all coming together to chant. I mean, maybe Gratia knows a better way to explain it, but I think how it feels to me, we're merging in the same energy field.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful explanation. We're merging in the same energy field, and we're merging into oneness, into the beyond time, beyond space, beyond stories, beyond who we think we are, into like the one heart. And I think with the mantras, most of them have been chanted for thousands of years. There is they carry within them this this energy, this, beyond time and space, that they're imbued, if we think of it like energy or electricity, they're so alive. And then we come together to chant them, and there's a lot of power in the sounds, and then that with being together. I
love that. I love that. Just what's coming out of the conversation for me is like, obviously the zone is being fully present, right? So like the zone is when you're not thinking about other things happening somewhere else at another time. Like the zone is when you're fully there, like you're fully present. And I feel like the mantras of Kirtan are so alive, like you just put it, that like they have so much energy that it's almost easier to be present with them than things that maybe haven't been sung so much, haven't had so much energy to electrify them. That sometimes they can be harder to be present with. It's like these are like such potent energy sources that it's easier to drop into presence. I wonder if that translates for you, Ekbalu.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely just this point where you're just completely in flow, and it's hard to explain. You do kind of have to experience it to really understand it. It's super simple and it's hard to explain, but we do overcomplicate things. But it's just this feeling, as you said, it's being present, it's being in flow, it's being relaxed, it's being in tune, trusting. I think trusting is the most important thing. Trying not to overthink, because everyone's going to doubt themselves and get nervous. And even me, when I was doing it myself in my own room, got super confident. And then when you're around others, you're like, oh, you're really hesitant. And it takes a bit of time to work up the courage. And I think that group stuff, when you consciously feel like you're hiding behind everyone a bit and people aren't going to notice my voice because we're all a collective, sort of like training wheels. And I think that really helps people just get into it and to get the confidence.
I feel like for me, the stories are what help me to trust the mantras. Like when I understand the story, when I understand the deity, I feel like I can trust it more. Sometimes when I'm singing a mantra in a kirtan and somebody hasn't explained, it's harder to trust it, because like your singing is really putting your heart into something. And I think in terms of like the West of what conversation, and the conversation about like the conversation we were having in the kitchen, it's like actually there is a real importance in knowing what you're singing, because words are spells and words have power and words are how we command and manifest. And actually, if you don't know what you're singing, how can you? I don't feel you can trust as much. For me, I know you guys might have had different experiences, but like for me, I feel like when I know what the mantra is about, what the invocation of it is, then it's easier for me to go into that zone and trust.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's lovely to hear that reflected back. Yeah. I suppose because my experience is just a bit different in that most of the time I'm at the kirtan that I'm leading. So and I become very familiar with the mantras when I'm playing them at home. So obviously I have that trust in them. And I think because I've got a long history with yoga, having done my first training like 25 years ago, the words, like some of the words I would have known, I've known them for 25 years. Whereas sometimes there'll be, even though, if we've heard of maybe like Shiva and Jai Ma, we might have heard of those, but we might not have heard of Nityananda Swarupa or, other words. So I suppose I feel like I have that trust already, like within me from the diving into yoga and mantra for, since my kind of early 20s, and then having been with me through my life. So it's interesting to hear how you feel that brings trust with the stories and the background, because it makes sense. We want to know, why if all these words and sounds are really new to us. We want to know what they are. And I do find when I go to other kirtans, when I do go to other people's, which I love, I want to know if there's new words. I want to know what they are. I want to know what I'm chanting.
And since we got a kirtan virgin,
that me, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to, obviously, presumably, some of the names connected to Kirtan, like Shiva and Ganesha and Kali. And I'd like you to, do you know any of the stories of any of them?
It's an interesting point you raise. First of all, no, I don't. And I think I've never even really thought about it like that. Like, I tend to hear the most common and familiar ones, and you just trust it's a powerful mantra, and for me, that's kind of enough. But it's interesting what you say about understanding what it means. It gives you more trust, because I'm not as familiar with this style, and that actually makes a lot of sense. But a lot of my sort of channeling and toning, I'm not even sure if it has a translation. It's like an intention that comes through, and the trusting is trusting that when you're connected to source, that whatever is coming out is right. So it's a different level of trust, because you're just trusting in yourself, your ability, the universe, that you've done, you've set the space right, and that you're just trusting that whatever's coming through is the right intention. And it sounds like words, but I'm not even sure if there's a translation to it. It's probably light language. It's probably ancient. I don't actually know. It sounds like it's a real word, but I think I'm making it up as well. So it's, I think there's kind of two ways to look at it. But when they are real words that are being passed down, then I think you definitely want to be a lot more inquisitive and to know what it means for sure.
And so of like the famous names from Kirtan, the ones that you know of as just somebody that is coming to the periphery because it's in music now, it's like Om Namah Shivaya is known.
Yeah, always Om Namah Shivaya. That's always a banger.
Or people know Ganesh now. They know Kali. They know these names. Out of the ones which one do you want to know the story of right now?
Probably Om Namah Shivaya, and I think the main reason being, obviously it's quite common, but I remember I've done ayahuasca numerous times, and I've done it with Icaros, with Shipibos, I've done it with people just playing music, and I remember there was this one particular ceremony, and they were, on this particular occasion, they were Western shamans, they were Estonian, I believe, and they just had guitars and had the most beautiful voices, and they were singing and they were singing like an Om Namah Shivaya with guitar. It might have been their own version of it, I'm not too sure, but I just remember hearing that in the Mallorca, and it's like, the acoustics are perfect, just being taken on a journey, and it's honestly just one of the best experiences of my life, just listening to this beautiful music. And I wasn't really getting too much of the visuals, but it was just more of a feeling and just being bathed in the space. And I'll just always remember that mantra for me, where that exact song is stuck in my head, and it was beautiful.
Let's play this game. Tell us the journey you went on, and then hear the story of Om Namah Shivaya. Let's do it like that.
The journey in terms of like what I was experiencing when I was listening to it, it was just pure joy and happiness and gratitude. I was like, fuck yeah, this is like the best concert ever, and I've got front row seats, even though it was dark and I couldn't see anything. But it was just a feeling of, I was just so happy. Like everyone else is vomiting and purging and having the worst time, and I'm just like, I'm having the time of my life. Some guy was literally outside having like an exorcism. He's like, his clothes were off, his socks are off, he was screaming in the mountains, and I'm just like, you're ruining the song. Can you please be quiet?
Oh, that's great to hear. I love that, Ekbalu. Yeah, so Om Namah Shivaya, one of the translations that really resonates with me is I merge with my true self. so my higher self, and it sounds from your expression of just being full of joy and expansiveness that you were having a great Om Namah Shivaya moment.
Oh yeah, I was. Yeah.
What is who's Shiva?
So Shiva is he's almost like a bit of a outcast rebel deity in the sense because he's the deity that presides over yoga. He's spending a lot of time meditating and doing poses in the Himalayas. So he's seen as a bit of a rebel and bit of outcast in terms of the pantheon of deities, and he's very much also, if we think of like Shiva and Shakti, the kind of divine feminine, divine masculine, or in one way, and also Shiva in terms of like spaciousness and expansion and in a way stillness. So that experience we might have after a long yoga session and a meditation or something, in that place of oneness and connection, is also like Shiva energy.
And I mean, this is where we're living in incredible times, hey, because, Ekbalu, I would say like what you just described is what that story of Shiva is and what that description of Shiva is. And yet it's got to be the first time in human history that a plant from the Amazon
Yeah, I know.
is being like, is helping you connect to this deity that this deity that belongs to the land of India. It's just, we're living in this crazy time of cross-pollination.
Yeah, it was a very unorthodox ceremony in terms of like, again, I went from being in the Amazon with, shamans that could only speak, Shipibo, not even Spanish, and they're doing proper Icaros, and it doesn't sound great when 7 of them are singing at once, but when they come and face you personally and they sing the Icaros, you can really see the energy going inside you and clearing things out and shifting things around. So it was weird to then have this experience. It was in Cusco in the Sacred Valley, and, like Western shamans and playing instruments, but regardless, it just sounded incredible. and they were obviously doing medicine songs in Spanish and a few things like that, but there was definitely a part where they were doing, Sanskrit.
And what do we all think about this crossing of, because I know there's some people that like don't think it should happen. There's other people that think it's a really good thing. I'm curious about like this mixing of.
Do you mean with ayahuasca, or are you
just in general? Like what do we think Shiva thinks about coming to ayahuasca ceremonies?
I reckon.
You asking me? Oh yeah,
I was just going to say I reckon he's really happy about it.
Oh yeah, I'm stoked about it. I don't look in spirituality and things like this. I don't like rules. For me, it's all about intention. So why should there be rules if you're channeling source? Source does not have barriers or walls. So no matter where you are, our consciousness is connecting to everything. So if this particular energy is coming through and the intention's there and it's healing, then great. It's a different modality. It's what's needed for that time. Just because you're having a particular plant medicine, it doesn't mean a specific language or tradition has to come through. When you open yourself to source and spirit and intention, it's all relevant. They're all teachings. They're all different, different ways to skin a cat. So yeah, I'm a big advocate for all of it. Sometimes for ayahuasca, though, I will say that sometimes the Western shamans don't respect the space a bit, and it becomes a little bit of a cash grab, and they probably have too many people in the space and aren't protecting the space enough because there's a lot of energy going around. So I will say sometimes it's a little bit incompetent in that regard, but the ones that I've been to, I'm pretty selective and cautious about that. But I am noticing a lot of these sort of Western shamans are doing 40 people in one Mallorca, sometimes 60, and you just cannot hold space for that many people. You just can't. It should be like one person per 4 or 5 or something like that. That is the reality of it. And I have heard bad experiences where energies are actually jumping from one person to another, and then they need to get something removed because it's not a protected space. So there's definitely a bit of a middle ground there, but in terms of the music and the Icaros and all that, I'm all for just doing whatever sounds great.
Yeah, it feels like that. There's a couple of different things, isn't there? That there's which I agree also. You know, I feel really blessed that, I mean, I love cacao, and I love sometimes when I do one of the Kirtan cacao and dance drum journeys with Michelle, you know, it feels like I feel so grateful that we can open with this beautiful drink from South America, and then, you know, Michelle will do this guided journey on the drums, her drums, you know, from Africa, and then we go into the Kirtan from India, and I feel like I'm really blessed, and it, you know, like you said, Kahreela, it's quite amazing to be in this time where, you know, everything's like on offer in a way, and I think that's also why, yeah. So I like you using everything, and however, I think it's important about the roots, and like, it sounds a bit what you were mentioning, Ekbalu. It's like the kind of commoditization of
kind of like we need to keep this sacred. We have to be careful not to. I mean, I think Ekbalu put it really well. It's like, of course, if you're channeling the divine, if you're of service, and I think that's the thing that keeps coming through this show. It's like, if it's coming from the right place, then the pick and mix is just amazing, and what makes this time so rich. And yet, we also have to take care. You know, the one thing about the traditions and the traditional ways is they stop these things getting muddy.
Yeah.
I wonder if, are we, you know, it's part of the reason this show is here, is to ask these difficult questions, like, are we risking these incredibly potent Kirtan mantras getting muddy when they get mixed in to pop songs and mixed into ceremonies that are not from their traditions? And I'm not saying that's true. I'm just asking the question in this space, so I'd be interested to hear it.
It's a very interesting question, and it's quite it's a very open-ended question, because for me as a DJ, what I found was I loved when I was playing electronic music to a large dance floor. I liked layering things like chants and stuff in the background, because my intention was to get this energy out to a wider audience. And I could see how that might offend some people potentially, but I mean, my perspective of it was that everyone liked it, and my intention was pure. And that's probably an extreme of going probably the wrong way, but that was my intention behind it. It's like, how do I get this to a larger audience, and it's having some effect, even if they may not necessarily be aware of it, but everyone hears it and still likes it. They may not know why, but I think that's because of the energy behind it. So that's one extreme in my experience of it. So it's a bit of a tricky one. I know some people may not like that, but that's my experience of going to one extreme.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about the muddying the waters idea, and like, do you kind of mean like almost dispelling the energy?
If you think the power of Kirtan, we've said it, is because these mantras have been sung so often, so they've really got this really strong energy from being repeated so often, because when we repeat something, it becomes stronger.
Yeah.
And it's just coming through the field right now, because this is where I'm not saying there's a right or wrong at all.
I'm just, I hadn't kind of looked at it in that way, in terms of, but I love what you said, Ekbalu, that, you know, again, it's the intention of what you were doing with the sound, and wanting to layer up, and then you have this beautiful mantra in the background, and you know, people are receiving that. I really like that. I think it's interesting as well. I've heard some, you know, there's some electronic music where I've heard mantras be used, and then sometimes I like it, and then sometimes I can't feel the magic in it.
And that's what I mean by muddy. Like, if we are misusing the mantras, are we weakening them?
Yeah, I think I know what you're saying. Sorry, it's like
it's like
weakening it almost. Like
putting a chord into it that isn't actually true to the mantra, or putting an intention into it that is like, are we making it weaker because for years it's been sung in this very traditional way that's about the purity of it, like just about Shiva. Like, as soon as Shiva is about ayahuasca, are we weakening the tone of Shiva? I don't know if I'm right. I'm just letting West of What take us into this
interesting,
this difficult conversation.
Yeah. And also, I don't know, I think when we were talking the other day about, I think as Westerners, we've been looking for connection because it's been lost in our own culture. So we are taking probably bits and pieces, but I must say that for me, that sort of coming from yoga background, tantric background, that feels familiar to me. And more than I'm not drawn to the shamanic practices, and not so much cacao, and as you know, and I don't know why that is. I feel like not because I'm trying to stick to one path, but that's just the way it feels for me. It just feels more familiar, and that's what I know. Yeah, that's probably what it is. I got asked to do cacao ceremonies here, and I did them, but it didn't feel like it was coming from the right place. Funny enough, I didn't feel that. I suppose, I don't know. I just didn't feel like I knew enough, or I've experienced it enough to be offering it. So I think that's fair enough, isn't it? But I don't think I think now in the yoga world and these practices, not just yoga world, but the holistic world, these things are merging, and it's very normal. And it's okay. I think it's okay. It's like, it's just, what else have we all got, and I think, we need to, I think it's this, we want this connection. We've got all these beautiful practices. Why can't we bring them together?
And I think we should. I think we are in a time of cross-pollination. I just wonder if it's worth anybody that is cross-pollinating asking the question, like, how can I keep the purity of this while I'm like, how can I not make this flavor weak? How can I keep the integrity of this in this cross-pollination process? It feels actually quite, like, for me, it feels like that's what the field of this particular episode is trying to say, is like, don't forget that the intention matters. Don't forget that some of these things have spent thousands of years becoming pure and becoming strong, and it is our duty as well to keep them pure and strong as we start to play with them in these new fields and in these new worlds. And just even holding that intention feels like it's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd like to ask, what do you think about in terms of that? Like, because now there's like quite a lot of Kirtan that mixes English in with Sanskrit.
Oh no, I 100% agree with you. There's definitely a world where it's too muddied and it's not respected and things like that. And as the others touched on, sometimes you hear it and it's just not hitting you right. So there is a world, but the thing is, you can't define it. There's no rule about, like, because if I'm using it my way in a DJ sense, I know that in some regards that's like a big no-no, but I can tell that the intention's better and it's having an effect. But then I can also tell that some people are probably using it in a way that the intention isn't as good and it's not hitting right. But how do you define that rule? It's hard. So you are right, but it's a tricky one. But I do think if these are stories and these are learnings and teachings, they're meant to be told. So it's really hard to know where that line is. But again, it just really does have to come back to intention.
And where do as Kirtan singers, where do you both think that line is?
Ooh. I mean, it's interesting for me being part of this discussion. I think I've often, I mean, I still haven't actually recorded any of my Kirtan music, and
You want you to.
that's going to be this year. And
Ooh, awesome.
yeah. And also I've thought, beyond that, when I've done that, I'd like to, mix the kind of electronic with perhaps with mantra, because that was always part of, the music that I listened to as a teenager and in my 20s. And I've always thought, I wonder how that would work, how that would work if I was, part of the creating of that music. So it's kind of given me a little bit of a food for thought, because around the intention, and is that still something that I want to do? I don't know. I'm gonna
look. I think it's good. Like, music seeds our consciousness, and if you think of some of the things that our consciousness was seeded with in the 90s, I think it's got to be good that this, like, young people or all people are dancing to these mantras and this medicine.
Yeah.
Like higher states of consciousness through celebration, like that's the point of Kirtan, right? That's the very roots of Kirtan, and it's always been this rebel medicine, and so absolutely it's going to go rebel in the 21st century as well. But I'm like, let's just put into the field of it going rebel that we take care of how potent it is and don't water it down.
Yeah, I completely agree.
By not holding the right intention,
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, what do you think about mixing English and Sanskrit?
Yeah.
And I love it.
Hang on. So are you saying that they're changing the original word into English?
So nowadays, a lot of Kirtan singers sing a chant that has a little bit of Sanskrit and a little bit of English. And they're mixing English into Sanskrit, which I love because English is my mother tongue. And like I said, for me, the meaning is meaningful when I understand it. And obviously, I'm English. I'm like, yeah. But again, I know that some people have a thing of like, is it watering down? So I'm interested.
I've always feel much more drawn to just staying with the Sanskrit. When I chant Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, I do in that one go to the English in that mantra as well. May all the beings in all the worlds be free and at peace. And that one I like mixing in. But much as some of the other mantras that I've heard people chant, and when they do bring English in, sometimes it's some of the the poet saints poetry, and I sometimes really like it. I sometimes don't. And I guess it's down to the intention again, perhaps. Like, sometimes it just doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah, but I feel like that as well. I think I've said that to you before, Gratia. It kind of makes me feel like, doesn't sound right. Because the Sanskrit holds more power? Is it because of that? Is it because we're not familiar with hearing it in English? It sounds strange. I don't know. I don't always feel that comfortable with it. When you do the low class, I think that's absolutely fine, because that's said in a yoga class, sometimes in English, and that's something that feels all right with me as well. But I haven't been to a Kirtan, I must say, that does that, and I don't know how I would feel about it. I'm not sure why I would feel strange about it, but I think it could be more about that. The Sanskrit, to me, holds more. But then maybe Kahreela's right. Well, that's our mother tongue. Why are we shying away from that? I don't know. I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's definitely something about if it's an ancient language, there's something about that would actually hold some sort of a energetic code or frequency it's got more history in it, more story in it. But at the same time, I've seen a study where people have spoken to a plant or water crystals and have said, I love you in any language, and it had the same effect. It made it healthy. It changed the crystalline structure. So that particular study scientifically proved that it was more so the intention still had the same energy to go into the plant or to the water. But when they said something of hate in any language, it disrupted it as well. So scientifically, it's like it doesn't seem like it has a difference as long as the energy's there. But like I'm old school, so like I would personally prefer to hear the ancient way. But it's true. Like I think it probably just does come down to intention at the end of it.
I think that's where we've landed, is that it comes down to intention. Although I would say that Sanskrit has only been used for devotion, and that's why it's so powerful, because it hasn't been used as a language to insult people or like other things.
Exactly. Yeah.
It is purely for devotion, and I think that's why it allows you into the zone. If you think of the use of English, it's used for all sorts of other things as well. And so I think there is something to be said for using a language that has only been used for devotion for, 500 years,
Yeah.
Especially because we're not very good at devotion, and we don't have many devotional practices in modern day life. And so I think that devotion in the Sanskrit helps us get into the devotional place more easily. I'd like to, obviously we're running out of time, but I'd just like to end by asking you both 2 questions. First is, what would you say for anybody that wants to do Kirtan or any other traditional ancient practice? What would you say is the most important thing for them to do in terms of culturally celebrating?
Like what we said earlier, just learn a bit more about what you're actually doing, just get a little bit of knowledge behind it. I think that would be what I would say. I think I went too many years of not really understanding why I was chanting, what it was about. And I think, like you said, it's something it is quite important for the connection. Even though I had the connection already, I think it's nice to have the knowledge. I think we've come to that really amongst us, that having a little bit of this knowledge is important, that we're not just doing these practices and not really understanding anything about them. I think we do owe it to the practices to have knowledge around it, but not to be scared to step into it. Just relax and, open your heart and step into these practices and be curious.
Yeah, that's lovely, Pam. I'd agree with that. It's almost like doing your research and having a bit of understanding, and then stepping into the practice and who you've selected to go and experience it with, and then letting go of, in a way, letting go of that research that you've kind of done with your mind, and just stepping open with an open heart to receive the gifts of the practice.
And I think especially Kirtan is a river, isn't it? You are part of the new tradition of Kirtan. You are part of the new rebel devotional practice of creating temples with human hearts. And so trust your intention. My final question, and it's to Pam, is who should we have on this show next?
Who should we have on this show next? I don't know. Why to me?
I ask Gratia, may the life force be with you.
Oh, that's a good one. I might need to go away and think about it and get back to you on that. I don't really know. What's that?
Open up and channel.
I tell you what, I have a friend who's a devotee, and she's very interesting, and she'd be a good one to have on here. A German woman called my friend Connie, and she's a devotee of Swami Vishwananda, and she's a very cool woman, and we're always delving in to see, why has she gone this way? What was it that pulled her towards it? And she would be a good one to have. Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much. My heart is singing with all new things. I feel like I'm coming away from this show with a real want to serve the strength of these mantras as well as receive from them. So I'm very grateful for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Lovely to meet you, Ekbalu, and thank you for the invitation, Kahreela, and lovely to share the time with the three of you.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I feel honoured. It's lovely to meet you as well.
May you all keep singing. If today's episode touched your heart and you want to come into greater relationship with Mother Earth, visit landtantra.com and get involved. Your truth is part of this conversation, and we would love you to reach out on socials and let us know how it landed. And if it really inspired you, we hope you share it with others. Let's add more wow to our world.